The Selfish Giant by Oscar Wilde, Part 3. You had already watched the first two parts of the story. You must have enjoyed. Today, we are going to start with the third part. Hope you will enjoy today as well. In the last part, that is part 2, we saw that the giant was waiting eagerly and was hopeful. One morning, the giant heard the melodious song of a linnet. Initially, the giant thought that it must be the king's musician passing by. When he rushed to the casement and looked out, he saw. What did he see? He saw a most wonderful sight. Through a little hole in the wall, the children had crept in, and they were sitting in the branches of the trees. In every tree that he could see, there was a little child, and the trees were so glad to have the children back again that they had covered themselves with blossoms and were waving their arms gently above the children's heads. The birds were flying about and twittering with delight, and the flowers were looking up through the green grass and laughing. So what happened? Then the giant rejoiced, as he was sure that the spring has arrived. He looked out and found that children were back. Every tree was blossoming, as a child was sitting on its branch. It was a lovely scene. Only in one corner it was still winter. It was the farthest corner of the garden, and in it was standing a little boy. He was so small that he could not reach up to the branches of the tree, and he was wandering all round it, crying bitterly. The poor tree was still quite covered with frost and snow, and the north wind was blowing and roaring above it. The birds were flying, flowers were laughing, except for a place in the giant's garden where a small child could not climb the tree. The poor tree wanted the child, as frost, snow, and north wind were blowing on that. Climb up, little boy, said the tree, and it bent its branches down as low as it could. But the little boy was too tiny. You can look at the picture and see that the tree, as here in this story, is personalized, that it bent its branches down as low as it could, so that the child can get up on its branch. But it was not possible, because the little boy was too tiny to get up. And the giant's heart melted as he looked out. "How selfish I have been," he said. "Now I know why the spring would not come here." As you see that the giant has realized his mistake, and now he repents for what he had done. I will put that poor little boy on the top of the tree, and then I will knock down the wall, and my garden shall be the children's playground forever and ever. This is actually the self-realization of the giant, which is quite clear from what the giant said. He was really very sorry for what he had done. So he crept downstairs and opened the front door quite softly and went out into the garden. But when the children saw him, they were so frightened that they all ran away, and the garden became winter again. The giant realized his mistake. So he went downstairs and opened the front door. But the children were frightened to see him. When they all ran away from the garden, there again the winter returned. Only the little boy did not run, for his eyes were so full of tears that he did not see the giant coming. And the giant stole up behind him and took him gently in his hand and put him up into the tree. And the tree broke at once into blossoms, and the birds came and sang on it. And the little boy stretched out his 2 arms and flung them round the giant's neck and kissed him. Actually, the small boy could not run away because his eyes were full of tears and he could not see the giant coming. The giant lifted that little boy and put him onto a branch of the tree. As soon as the giant put the little boy on a branch of that tree, the tree blossomed at once. The boy was so pleased with the giant that he stretched out his two arms and flung them round the giant's neck and kissed him. And the other children, when they saw that the giant was not wicked any longer, came running back, and with them came the spring. The admirable behavior of the giant gave confidence to those children who ran away. They were very confident about the giant when they saw that the giant was not wicked any longer. So they came running back, and with them came the spring in the giant's garden. It is your garden now, little children, said the giant, and he took a great axe and knocked down the wall. The giant's behavior was changed, and he allowed all the children in his garden. With the children entered the spring. The jubilant giant took an axe and knocked down the wall. And when the people were going to market at 12 o'clock, they found the giant playing with the children in the most beautiful garden they had ever seen. People were actually very surprised to see the children playing with the giant who was once so selfish to them. And thereby we come to the end of the third part of the selfish giant. But as in every part I have discussed to you about the inner meaning of that particular part, I will do it here as well. Well, listen to the inner meaning of the third part of the story. Not only does this moment show the cosmic order at work, sending just rewards to those who deserve them, but it also shows the transformative power that children can have on the world simply by virtue of their purity and goodness. The children have brought springtime back to the garden. The giant himself does not deserve this, but the children's good nature outweighs the giant's bad behavior, and so the garden has returned to its natural state. The sight of the children's return was the missing piece of information that kept the giant from understanding that he himself was the cause of the long winter. The sudden change in seasons prompts the giant to compare himself to the children, which causes him to reflect upon his shortcomings and realize that he has been selfish. This exemplifies the biblical lesson from Matthew. Let the little children come to me, and do not stop them, for it is to such as these that the kingdom of heaven belongs. Without even realizing it, the children improve the giant morally. And he allowed them into his garden and into his life, as in the passage he never would have suffered as he did. This is the moment in which the giant atones for his wrongdoing in the eyes of heaven before he helps the little boy into the tree. The giant's approach scares off the children and re-invites winter weather into the garden. But as soon as he performs this unselfish gesture, the world responds by blossoming into spring once more, just as it does for the children. The giant has earned the approval of the cosmic powers that have thus far only punished him. The 19th century belief in the innate goodness of children also yielded the belief that children have a natural internal sense for good or malicious intent, otherwise known as discernment. This scene clearly follows from that line of thought, as the children are immediately able to sense the giant's good intent and forgive him. That's the end of part 3. The story will continue in the next part.